10 experienced hikers, 9 bodies found weeks later. A trail of evidence that defies logic: torn tents, fractured skulls, and an inexplicable fear that drove them into a frozen, unforgiving landscape. This is a cold case that started on a cold mountain, and 30 years later, it still haunts Russia. It began as a celebratory expedition, January 1959. 9 seasoned hikers, students, and alumni from the Ural Polytechnical Institute set out to conquer a challenging route in the northern Ural Mountains. Their leader, 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, was an experienced master of the trail. The goal was to reach Mount Otorten, a demanding trek, especially in the harsh Russian winter. A telegram was expected from them by February 12th. When it never arrived, a small search began. On February 26th, the search party located the group's tent on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, or Dead Mountain, a name given by the indigenous Mansi people. The discovery was immediately chilling. The tent was intact, but had been slashed open from the inside. Inside, clothes and boots were found, suggesting the hikers had fled the shelter in a desperate, impossible hurry, heading down the mountain in sub-zero temperatures. There were footprints, only partially visible, leading away from the camp towards a nearby forest, but there was no sign of a struggle with an animal or another person. The footprints belonged only to the group itself. 2 bodies, those of Krivonishenko and Doroshenko, were found first, near a large cedar tree, barefoot and dressed only in underwear. Their hands were burned, suggesting they had desperately tried to start a fire. Above them, tree branches were broken up to 5 meters high. 3 more bodies, including Dyatlov's, were found further up the slope, positioned as if they were trying to crawl or walk back toward the shelter. Slobodin had a small crack in his skull, ruled a non-fatal injury. It took 2 more months for the snow to melt enough to find the remaining 4 hikers, located deep within a ravine. The findings here transitioned the case from a tragedy into an enigma. Thibaut Brignol's had massive skull damage. Zolotaryov had cracked ribs. Most alarmingly, Dubinina had suffered extensive rib fractures and was found missing her tongue, eyes, and part of her lip and jaw. Furthermore, when the clothes of the last 4 victims were tested, forensic scientists detected inexplicable levels of radioactive contamination on several items. The initial Soviet investigation ruled the cause of death as a compelling natural force. Decades later, the most scientifically favored theory is a slab avalanche. The hikers cut into the snowbank to pitch their tent, weakening the slope above. A subsequent slab of snow slid down, hitting the tent. This explains the panic, the quick slashing of the tent to escape, and the blunt force trauma injuries on the final 4, who may have been crushed or fell into the ravine. The fact that the first 5 froze to death makes sense if they were injured and trying to find the missing 4. But this theory has holes. There was no traditional avalanche profile in the area, and the deep, internal injuries, like the missing tongue and eyes, are not typical of snow trauma. The sheer oddity of the injuries and the radioactive clothing fueled a more sinister theory: the Soviet military. Kholat Syakhl was close to secret Soviet military ranges. Was it a low-frequency weapon test gone wrong? A paradoxical fear caused by an infrasound shockwave could explain why the hikers cut their way out of the tent in a panic. The military then quietly covered it up. The radiation found on the clothes suggests they may have strayed into a military testing area, or perhaps the contamination was transferred from a piece of military equipment the search party used. This is why the case was immediately closed and classified. The earliest, simplest theory suggested a confrontation with the local indigenous Mansi people. Did the hikers trespass on sacred ground? However, the investigation quickly ruled this out. The nature of the injuries was inconsistent with primitive weapons, and there were no other footprints found. Plus, the Mansi were known to be peaceful. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains locked in an icy grip of speculation. An avalanche? A secret military test? Or a combination of forces no one could have anticipated? The official answers offer no comfort, and the true story of what terrified those 9 hikers to their deaths remains unwritten. What theory do you believe is most compelling? Let us know in the comments below. If you want to uncover more cold cases and mysteries, hit the like button and subscribe to the Unwritten File.